heard that.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Beaufort County Transportation Committee meeting of Wednesday, January the 17th, 2024. You have roll call, please.
Frank Gordon, Chairman.
Here.
John Glover.
Excused.
Okay. Vice Chairman Craig Forrest.
Here.
Jim Backer.
Here.
Brian Rizzo.
Brian is no longer with us. He needs to come off.
Charles Perry.
Here.
Virginia Kozak. Not here yet. Paul
She'll
Manning.
be here.
Here.
Terry Daniels.
Here.
And Arthur Hammond.
Here.
Is John Barrow with us today?
No. We have a quorum.
No, that's good.
It's customary for us to do introductions around the room. We'll start over here.
My name's Jim Iwaniki, Transportation Program Manager, Townfield, Penn Island.
Elizabeth Sanders, resident maintenance engineer, SDOT for Beaufort.
Mike Healy, resident maintenance engineer for Jasper.
Suzanne Larson, Low Country Inside Track.
Mike Everett with Elcott.
Oliver Warren with Thomas Concrete.
Ivana Bureau, Emergency Program, SDOT.
Chad Rollins, Corporate Government Services Manager, the DOT.
We'll come up front.
Brian Bauer, Beaufort County Traffic Construction Manager.
Dusty Ross, Beaufort County Construction Manager.
Hannah.
Hannah Nichols, I'm the Public Information Officer and Communications Director for Beaufort County Government. I know it's very well.
Joe Clover, County Council District 3.
Henry Tabernick, County Council District 6.
Paula Brown, County Council District 8.
Carol Porter, I am the Executive Assistant to Infrastructure for Jared Bailiff, and I am facilitating the meeting today.
Well, I was going to introduce John Barrow. John isn't here. John is our new District 10 representative, and he hasn't been through our CTC 101 yet, so we're going to do that. I'm very happy to see our representatives here visiting us from SCDOT in Columbia. Very much welcome. Glad to have you here. Thank you. It's time for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there anybody that has public comment to our agenda items? Seeing none, Oliver, I want to ask you to come up front, please. Let me slide by here. Thomas Concrete has, collaborated with us on providing at no cost over 100 yards of concrete to make a major road repair of a county-owned road. And on behalf of the Beaufort County Transportation Committee, we can't thank you enough. I know that's a gift of somewhere around $25,000. So we very much appreciate your help and efforts in that. And as a sign of our appreciation, I want to present that to you.
Thank you so much.
While we're standing here, she'll take her picture.
Thank
Do
you.
you have anything you'd like to say?
No, we just appreciate y'all. I appreciate Brian and all the efforts he has on his end, Blythe, Phillips Paving. Appreciate everybody's work on it. It's really been a pothole. I called someone from Bluffton who lived in the area, always called and complained to me about it, said, when are y'all going to help fix this road? And I called him and texted him the other night, said it would finally get done.
We're done.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is approval of our November 15th meeting minutes. Anybody have any corrections or objections? See none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Old business. Neva was supposed to be here today, but she is sick, so we're going to kind of go through it. We all have, in your binder, you have the slides that go correlate with what's on the screen. We have Charleston Highways, the first item. From the Colton County line, they said they've done the full depth patching. It's getting full depth patching and milling and 200-pound surface. It doesn't have to be done till 11/15/2024. Rehab was Land's End Road. It's being widened. Putting on CMRB with 200-pound surface. The next item is Islands Causeway. Again, it's being widened, 12-inch CMRB and 200-pound surface. This is a project that we donated money for out of a year ago or 2 years ago. It's now being put to use. The next are completed roads that are listed. They've had a pretty good year for us. The next one is Hall Road. Again, it's being widened. There was a major project for pavement markings, and she notes that it's been, project's been delayed, no new start date or end date. And that pretty much takes the run of her projects. Any questions by anybody? I'll try to answer them the best I can, but that pretty much runs the listing for her projects. The next item is Dirt Road Project. Brian, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee members. So start with Dirt Road 53. Rainbow Road is complete with my punch list items. We finally have received DHEC permits back for Twickenham and Northview Road. Those are going through final design, and I'm hopeful that they can get started with construction within sometime in February on those. We have asked for Twickenham to be prioritized out of those two, assuming it will not delay Northview as far as permitting and construction goes. So they're going to look at starting at Twickenham.
Okay.
Dirt Road 54 was Rocking on DeFusky. This is Francis Jones Church Road and School Road. That was completed at the end of last year. Rusty was over there a couple weeks ago, says that, you know, it's come through the winter looking pretty good. So we'll keep an eye on it and see how that turns out.
I had positive comments made to me from the council that the Fusky Council was pretty happy with what we did.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Dirt Road 55 is the next one that's going to come out to bid. I'm hoping that this gets put out later on this month to possibly bid in February. It'll be another design build. Has Dolphin Watch Point, Leo Green Road, and Mr. Glover's not here, but it's got James D. Washington on it, so.
Yeah, where is he? His brother just left.
But I was excited to tell him about that one, but, yeah, so hopefully, these are going to come out, like I said, be put out to, publish later on this month, to go out to bid next month. It is design build, so it'll, you know, take a year or so before we see any pavement on the ground. But, so those are the next three and are coming down the road.
Question.
Yes, sir.
On Hillsdale, there's Bishopville Road.
Okay.
That's the dirt road.
Yep.
I'm not sure of the criteria for doing anything to it, but it's in need of something.
It's owned by, I think it's owned by the town of Hilton Head.
It may be.
I believe
I'm pretty
Mitchell,
certain it is.
I believe Mitchellville is Hilton Head, and there may be a small portion that's county, but I believe the majority of it is the town.
Actually,
you know? Okay.
actually, my understanding is that, the small portion that we own has been offered to the town of Hilton Head. We've offered to
Yes.
provide money to the town of Hilton Head to resurface it and do whatever they want to. But the idea is that we're not gonna touch it because the majority of it is owned by the town of Hilton Head.
I believe that's correct. I know it is not on our 5-year program right now, but I believe that what you just mentioned is correct, so.
It's only a small, it's a fairly small length, probably a mile, if that, that's a dirt road.
Yeah.
But it is kind of the shortest route to Fish Hall Park.
Okay, yeah, and I believe
And it gets
that's,
a lot of use because of that.
and I believe that's kind of the town's impetus for it, is that there is a town-owned park back there. But, so I don't know if you know anything about that, Jared? Mitchellville Road, do you know where, anything with that stands? Okay.
I've had conversation with the council member from that district, and I know that they're talking to the town administrator about doing that. There's also three other roads. We've talked to them about Arrow, Burke's Beach, what's the other,
Arrow, Burke's Beach, there's several other roads off of Burke's Beach.
that we're gonna wind up giving, since we've brought them up to county standard.
New Orleans
Our
is that
intent
one.
is to turn them over to the town of Hilton Head and let them have the roads in the future. Yes, Craig?
We do have a representative of Hilton Head Transportation. I mean, maybe they could shed some light on that road or whatever.
I don't know enough right now to tell you, but I will check into it and get back.
Thank you.
All right, so for, next one up is year 6 resurfacing. We are in punch list on the majority of the roads on that. Bentonville Road, as mentioned earlier, again, want to reiterate the chairman's thanks to Oliver and Thomas Concrete. They've been extremely helpful in getting this project going and collaborating with it. We have, last week, they removed the roadway section in front of one of Thomas's gates and poured it back with concrete. This week, actually tomorrow, it was supposed to be today, but with the weather, it was delayed. They will be removing one of the road in front of one of the entrances to Palmetto Breeze and placing concrete back there. And then once it has time to cure, next week, they will mill the road and put asphalt back to finish the surface on the rest of the road. So hopefully by the end of the month, we will have that one completed.
Question?
Is there a meaning of the color coding on that?
The green is just completed except for punch list.
Gotcha.
Next up, we have preservation, which was microsurfacing on county roads and chip seal on DOT roads. Again, that one has been complete except for punch list. Year 6 rejuvenator has all county roads, but that has been completed. And there's no punch list on that one.
Before we go down, Elizabeth, my understanding is that the roads we did with chip seal was pretty well accepted by District 6.
Yes, I did like the seal every month, but a few items remaining.
Yeah, there's still some punch list items we're working with the contractor to get completed, but that was a chip seal with a fog seal over top of it. So.
Right.
All right, so next we'll move into, we now have all of our bids and proposals back for our year 7 contracts. So I have those broken down next. This is the year 7 resurfacing. It's broken up between the county roads and the SCDOT roads. The county roads portion came back, and I believe y'all have the bid tab for this one. Blythe, who did this year's program, was the low bidder. The county road portion was $2.3 million. The DOT roads was 1.75 roughly. They also, we have reached out, they bid on patching of Bluffton Parkway between Buck Island Road and Red Cedar. That came in at $134,000, And that is going to come out of the one-time funding that was
Our
provided to the
CTC funding, we put
Yes.
$400,000 back for that.
Yep, and so that, like I said, that's going to be, Buck Island to Red Cedar to fix where it has been potholing fairly badly. I know the town's reached out and, as long with some of the members on the committee and on council. And since it came in, it was a lower quantity than we thought, we may be able to expand that to get some other portions of the parkway as well. So that was all from Blythe. We have reached out to Trans Systems, who is on our CEI on-call for the county, to provide PM and CEI services. And their estimate for that was almost $164,000. Year 7 preservation.
Questions on year 7 resurfacing? Note that under SCDOT routes, we picked up, I think Cherokee Farms was one of the roads that we recommended, and Rugrack.
And then also Ulmer, were 3 roads. The remaining roads came off of our 5-year plan for the low-volume ADT. The Cherokee Farms, Rugrack, and Ulmer were portions that were y'all selected in September. Cherokee Farms, the county resurfaced the county-owned portion of it, I believe 2 years ago, so that will complete the rest of the roadway. And Ulmer Road, I believe we are going to look at doing Ulmer from Benton Field back up to Burnt Church. So that section is in the worst shape, probably because of the buses and concrete. But so that's the section we're going to look at doing there. The rest of it is in pretty good shape. So
this is 2024 or?
Yes, this would.
2025?
Yes, we just got the bids back on this, so they would be starting when we can get voted on by committee and council and then get contracts back. So this would be for 2024.
It's our year 7, which is 2024.
2024, okay.
The year 7 preservation, this is microsurfacing on county roads, is approximately $527,000. And this is going to be slurry pavers who did last year's portion as well, that did the microsurfacing. And we have reached out to ICE, who did the CEI this year, to provide PM and CEI services for the preservation and the rejuvenator contract as well. And their bid was a little over $40,000. And again, they are on our CEI on-call. Year 7 rejuvenator came in a little over $172,000. And this is again, county-owned roads. These are all roads that have been resurfaced within the last 2 years, I believe, and a couple of dirt roads that have recently been paved to do the first round of rejuvenator on those. So here is a breakdown of all those contracts on one spot. Overall, it's coming out to about $5.1 million. If we look at this based on what is county and what is DOT, we are looking at about 37% is going to the state system, which exceeds our requirement of 33%. And we would recommend for all these projects, a 20% contingency, except for rejuvenator, which would be 10%. And the reason for that is, we have included the DOT indexes for asphalt on there. So there's some fluctuation month to month with asphalt pricing and fuel pricing. And that applies to the microsurfacing as well. And then,
As a reminder, we approved 2 years ago going to work off the SCDOT's index for asphalt purchasing so that we can adjust our pricing as it goes up or down rather than having a fixed contract. That way we're not, they're not being taken advantage of and we're not being taken advantage of by bidding. So that's just a refresher.
and also this is, we have bid these in the past as lump sum. We bid these this year as quantities and unit rates. So this is the first time we're doing that. So that's why we're recommending 20% contingency. Both of these things that I just mentioned, the unit rates and lump sums and the use of the indices were recommendations, from the contractors in the past on how, we may be able to get more competitive bids versus lump sum where everything's just lumped together and then not using the indices because then they're stuck, with the price they bid, potentially 8-9 months ago. And if we have what we had, 2 years ago with the volatility over the summer months with, I think asphalt went from like $500 a ton to over 800. They're leaving a lot of money on the table and they have to account for that in lump sum pricing. So, and with that, our resurfacing contract was, I believe, within a couple % of our engineer's estimate. So it was pretty close. So, with that, I'll take any questions and I think that finishes up for me.
Question? Okay, thank you much, appreciate it. Next item, SC 170 triangle update. And while they're there, we'll talk about the bridges.
Good afternoon, Chairman and CTC Board. Thank you for having me. So 170, as you all are aware, we've got the Triangle Project, which makes up 170, 278, and Argent Boulevard. First out the gate last year, we were able to put out to bid what we call the near-term project, which is on 170, so fixing some pinch points along 170 at some specific intersections. We put that out to bid. They were able, before the winter season set in, they were able to work on the 2 intersections there at 170, extending the turn lane, going to 462, north on 462, as well as adding the second turn lane left out of Argent Boulevard onto 170 north. So those 2 activities have been completed. We continue to monitor that as far as the timing, how now we're letting more traffic go from Argent to get to the next signal up. So we're working on that timing and continuing to monitor that. As the weather starts to warm up, you're going to see more activity start to take place at the 278 and 170 interchange, specifically on the widening section there. We're going to widen a little bit. We got a little bit of base to put in through. If you're heading south on 170, we're basically extending the turn lane instead of starting just past the intersection to get under the bridge and do a roundabout. We're extending that turn lane through that intersection. So there's some asphalt work to do right there. So that'll be the area you'll start to see activity between that part of 170 all the way back to the entrance at Food Line at South Oakity Boulevard. There's improvements there to be made as part of the project. And then up on 270, all 4 ramps and the section from the overpass at 170 back eastward towards Oakity River, that section will be resurfaced as part of that project. So I believe they have a completion date at the end of summer for that project, the near term?
It's October.
October. So, but a lot of asphalt work, and again, we partnered with DOT on that, and Jasper and Hardyville. So a lot of good cross coordination on that. So what we're looking at next is these signals. There's a lot of signal pressure on the signals in the area, as well as some warrant analysis that have been met on some new signals in the area, specifically at Oldfield and East Argent, directly across this East Argent. At that intersection, the warrant analysis has been looked at and met for a signal, as well as on Argent Boulevard, where the other end of that East Argent comes out at New River Parkway, or New River Road there. So we're looking at the one on Oldfield. City of Hardyville is working on the one at Argent Boulevard, and then DOT is looking at the one at Argent Boulevard and 278, a signal there at that location. There's also other signals in the area as far as relocating 462. The long-term plan is to move that signal up further north, so it's in the tangent section, as well as an additional signal. At Shortcut Road, Hardyville has a plan in place for that signal to be installed, and I think I'm missing one more. Anyhow, from 462 all the way to 278, there's 6 signals that are in some form of improvement or some form of design. We're working on getting together a schedule, so we'll be able to present that and say, okay, this is exactly what we're doing. More than likely what we're going to do, similar to what we did at Windmill Harbor, And what we've done at, on Bluffton Parkway is to install an interim signal, so a wooden pole with string poles in order to get the signal installed, and later come back with the long-term improvements with mast arms, or whatever will be prescribed at each intersection. So again, those have a long lead time, so to try to fast track the project, that's going to be the plan.
Beaufort County, to interrupt you, Beaufort County bought a parcel of land almost across from St. Gregory the Great, 100 acres in there, plus or minus, I think. And that's where administrative buildings are going to be relocated and sheriff's office. I
Yeah,
believe, as well.
at John Paul, so right across from Ace School and John Paul, on the Beaufort side of the road, 115 acres we bought last year for a law enforcement center and administrative type offices. So we're about to put that out to bid to do a RFQ and master plan of that site. But the intent is that the existing 170, how it's in the curve, would be relocated, and it would fit in between the two schools, in between Ace and John Paul, so they both have signalized access, as well as would line up to the future master plan of the law enforcement center there, that 115 acres, as well as get it out of that curve. So all that's working as well. And then as far as the bigger project, what we're working towards on that is next month in February at LATS. There's been a lot of updates to the tip that the technical committee has made recommendations to the policy committee. Those recommendations will be brought forward in February for the policy committee to move on. Inside of that is funding for the preliminary engineering to get started on the Triangle project. So pending approval on that from LATS, there will be, I think it's about $2 million or $2.5 million prescribed to get that piece moving. And DOT or Beaufort County will work with DOT and with LATS to facilitate that, more than likely through an LPA process through the county. So that will be the biggest cog in the gears to get moving. And at that point, we can officially say the Triangle project is moving. The larger Triangle project is moving. So that's where we're at.
Questions? Okay.
All right. On 278, this is a really short update because from when I talked to you guys in the last meeting, we had just finished the presentation from our joint independent review, and the county council had just wrote a note to the town of Hilton Head requesting their municipal consent by January 31st. So we are still in that same position, and we're waiting for their response via January 31st.
Further questions? Thanks much, Jared. Appreciate the update.
All right.
New business. Selection of committee streets with ADT between 500 and 2,000. I'm going to digress for a second and go back and give you a little bit of what has happened in the past. For those that weren't on the committee, about 3 years ago, the committee made the decision that we would look at, in specific roads, 500 ADT and less, because these are streets which DOTs will never meet DOT's criteria for paving under any circumstance. So we've taken that on and developed a 5-year plan. The decision was by this committee as well to take 500 to 2,000, anything with less than 2,000 ADT, and to select streets in your districts and put them in for consideration, which you saw we have in year 7's paving cycle. It's being done. After a great deal of reflection, I've wondered whether I have put too damn much responsibility on everybody's shoulders. And simply saying, rather than having you as committee members trying to select streets, I haven't entertained the thought of us going ahead and hiring a consultant to look at roads between 500 and 2,000 with the idea that in particular, these are streets that, again, DOT would probably never touch. And that way, it takes that out of your wheelhouse, but it still makes you look at them and act on them. I recognize that there's districts where we're not going to have any streets in that criteria. Charles, you probably don't have any, Craig probably doesn't have any. And so we have a lot that don't meet that criteria. So the other thing open for discussion is we're responsible for roughly 1.2 million to be spent on state roads. It's by state statute, it's our responsibility to do such. I'm open for either hiring a consultant to look at 500 to 2,000 or looking at different criteria. Conversation.
Will there be new AADTs available?
No, ma'am.
So we'll still be using this?
Same AADTs.
As you know, that my concern is that we've had such a change in traffic in my district, that using those now, what, 5 years old?
3 years old.
3 years old. That's still, there's been a huge change in traffic patterns where streets when even 3 years ago were local residential streets, and now they've become thoroughfares for people going from Ladies Island to the hospital, basically. And even the fire department now uses it as their street instead of Rebo Road. And so, you know, the whole situation is there's a lot more wear and tear on the roads than there was 3 years ago.
The situation is, we were the first. We made quite a stink at DOT about getting our roads done.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the first ones in the state to have them done. And state secondaries are 5 or 7 years, depending again on traffic volumes.
Yeah.
And so trying to get that changed is fighting town hall. I don't think.
I know, it's just, as I say, it's a concern, not just me. I mean, I just happen to be one of many people who live there and deal with this, and the roads are okay now, but, you know, we can all see that from the amount of traffic and heavy traffic like fire engines and ambulances, it's not gonna last as long as it was planned for.
If we go ahead with hiring a consultant to put it out RFP and have a consultant do it, it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't draw attention to certain streets in anybody's district if you so desire. Yes, sir.
Personally, I would endorse the use of a consultant, because personally, maybe it's my age and lack of computer skills, but I found it challenging to take the various databases and come up with a list of roads that met the criteria that were in the district, because you were switching back and forth between databases, and I ended up, quite frankly, confused. So if it's just a decision to make of whether you want to do this, this, or this, it makes it much easier for folks of my age to, I think, and computer skills, to be able to have the list compiled and then look at the road to see whether you think it should be anything done on it. That's parts I'd be happy to do, but finding the roads are hard.
That might be a good way of looking into it, as well as having them develop the list and the criteria and put it in a 5-year plan, and then have us look at it and discern whether we want to follow the 5-year plan that they put out.
Yeah, I would endorse that approach. I mean, I was fortunate that I took the 2020 data a long time ago, put it into a spreadsheet that I could sort, so I didn't have to kind of do that manipulation of going back and forth. So I was able to, easily sort, but I have a lot of roads in my district that are very, very low AADT. Not good PQIs, I mean, very poor PQIs, but they're low traffic counts. So for this round, I would have only had one, greater than 500, less than 200.
I kind of see heads shaking around the room.
Concur. Do you need a motion?
Yes.
I move that the committee hire a consultant to to look at the criteria for the 500 to 2,000 roads,
ADT.
ADT.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Craig?
Mr. Chairman, I think this premise is to spend money on state highways, is that correct, for a consultant?
With the consultant, and particularly on, we're looking again at state highways that probably will not meet the required criteria ever by DOT to do work on.
I agree with you on that particular statement. But I can't believe that the department doesn't have some kind of indication on these roads about when they need to be resurfaced or treated or whatever. So therefore, you know.
You've said that in the past, and
Well, you know my position on these whole things. I hate to be the only one sitting around this table who's gonna vote no, but that's the way it's gonna have to be.
that's fine. We'll take it that way. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
So noted. Okay,
Will we be able to have some input on the RFP?
yes.
'Cause I've done
Through
a lot-
me?
I've done a lot of them for this sort of thing.
Through me. Bluffton Parkway update, I think you've already kind of done that, Brian.
Yes, sir.
You're-
I just add that we have it written in there that the patching on Bluffton Parkway, once we do get contract and notice to proceed, will be one of the first things they do. I think we'll have to negotiate with them, but we asked for 30 days from NTP for them to be completed with it. So we'll have to, the goal is to get it before the Heritage, but that's probably not going to happen, but try to get as close to, April timeframe as possible for that. So, but yeah, so that's it. And we will look at, if there's a possibility to add additional patching, we'll look at that as well. So.
I mean, I was actually shocked by the condition of Bluffton Parkway. Did that sort of deteriorate because traffic was higher than was predicted, or?
Yes.
In parts.
Because, I mean, it really was.
Yeah, and we had the county hired a consultant to look at, we've looked at two sections. We looked at the section from Buckingham Plantation up to the flyover. And that section, they, felt it had probably exceeded its design life, or its design easel count. The section between Buck Island Road and Red Cedar, we hired consultants to look at that. And they found the same thing. They thought it had probably met its design life and, the easel count there. So their recommendation, for more of a long-term is to eventually, as funding permits, mill out the 4 inches of asphalt and put it back. We are looking at other options there, including, a possibility of doing a hot in place recycling, which would be a combination of mill, hot in place, and putting a surface back over it. So we're going to look at that also, but still, that's going to be definitely a long-term, probably more, 10-year goal in stages, depending on funding. But that's basically what it was, is they think it's met its design life, so.
That process has been used up in the northern part of South Carolina and to some success.
Oh,
And so we've looked at using it instead of mill and fill.
yeah.
Yes.
And the short answer is that the road had a 15-year design, and traffic volume ADT was supposed to maximize the 15 years, where it exceeds the traffic volume at 10 years.
That's what I was wondering, if there was a real, and there definitely is a.
That's the issue.
And I think that's something other roads in Beaufort County are gonna be facing, that something was supposed to last for X years, and it's really X divided by 2 or something instead, and.
We did Pimento Bay Road 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and Pimento Bay only had a 15-year life expectancy, and the volume of traffic that was on it far exceeded what the design was for it at that point in time. So that's why we spent $2.5 to $3 million paving Pimento Bay.
Ahead of the original
Yeah.
schedule.
And we pay, and the CTC paid for it.
Yeah, and as I say, that's something, it's not just my neighborhood, but it concerns me is that roads are being paved or, constructed with an expected life, and it doesn't come anywhere near that, which would affect budgeting for everything.
Yeah, and I think on Bluffton Parkway, what we saw, especially on the section of the flyover, was the expected ADT at, say, 10 years was achieved a few years earlier. So I think the growth has probably outpaced the design a little.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thank you. Next item should say election of officers, not officer. When the CTC was reorganized, I was elected chairman, and one of the things that, when we put our first transportation plan together, was that I felt if somebody doesn't like me being chairman of the committee, they get a chance to get rid of me and have you serve not more than 1 year. So in doing such, it gives you the opportunity to have somebody else serve as chairman. So with that, I'll have nomination for chairman of the CTC. Yes, sir.
With a great deal of pleasure, I nominate Craig Gordon to succeed himself as the president or chairman of this board of directors. I also want to point out, I sit on a lot of boards, many in this region, and we are indeed extraordinarily fortunate to have a chairman who puts in as much time and is knowledgeable as Craig is. So it's a great deal of pleasure that I nominate you, sir.
Thank you. I'm humbled with that. Any other nominations? Okay, let's call for a vote.
I move it be done by acclamation, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now we know who to blame when everything goes.
I got broad shoulders. As a vice chairman this year, in the past, John Glover has served as vice chairman the last couple of years. And through some private conversation with John, he basically is going to have trouble attending meetings this year. So I'd like to open the floor to have a nomination for our vice chairman. Well, I guess I can do this through acclamation then. So I'll nominate Art.
I'd be pleased to serve, sir.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. There's a question, sir.
Question,
Yes, sir.
did John, write a letter saying he will or will not accept, nomination?
I had personal conversations with John.
And he said he don't want to?
Yes.
Okay.
I will nominate a secretary and treasurer at our next meeting. Treasurer's report, essentially where I'm going to go with the chairman's report or the treasurer's report at this meeting. With bids just coming in 2 days ago, we were fortunate enough to get all our budgeting put together, and I've basically asked them to go back and put our treasurer's report together with all the latest data and have it to us by early next week. So aside from having a treasurer's report, we will, that's a bid tab. We will have it by mid-next week. And with that, I'll also make note to the fact that I think the 22nd is what we've talked about, is we will have a new person taking what was Sierra's position, but this position was raised and she will no longer, she has left the house, so to speak. So we will have a new administrative help and budgetary help with a new person starting the 22nd. In closing, public comment, any comments? Chad, certainly entertain any, if you'd like to talk while you're here.
I didn't come to take up any time in your meeting, but I appreciate the opportunity to come down here. I'd like to repeat some of the things Mr. Hammond said. I've been in this position for about a year, and I have to say that Beaufort really runs the model CTC program. The way you conduct your meetings, or the way you conduct your programs, you're very forward thinking, and it's a pleasure to work with a body like this, and it's really encouraging. It's really happy to see the things that are going down here and what you're doing for your community down here. So we're glad, we're fortunate to have partners like you, and I hope that we can help you, accomplish what you're looking to. I've had the pleasure of talking with the chairman on the phone many times. I know he's a good fellow to talk to, just in general, but like I said, he's very forward thinking. When he calls me, I'm going to learn just as much as, probably more than he does, talking to me. So I look forward to those opportunities to make me better at what I do for not only for y'all, but for everybody else in the state. So we're very pleased to be in this partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much.
Yes, sir.
Well, Chairman's comments. I got a number of items I'd like to talk about. First of all, I'm humbled, and I very much appreciate your vote of confidence. I do very much care about the committee and the work that we do, and I'm very proud of the committee and the work that we've been able to accomplish. And I thank you for your support. Our next meeting is scheduled for March the 20th. It turns out that there will be a statewide CTC meeting in Columbia on the 20th, and I am planning on attending at this point in time. So I would like to have a motion that we've already checked to see if this facility is available to have the meeting on the 13th instead of the 20th.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. The last thing I have, which Chad and I had a conversation about a little bit this morning. I don't know if it wound up in your packet, but there was a long letter come out from Secretary of Transportation, Christy Hall, announces retirement. Christy is retiring as of 31st of March, and there's changes going about through DOT. There's a ripples effect. Their chief engineer had retired 6 months ago, and he put in place a chief operating officer. So only time will tell who becomes the new Secretary of Transportation. But I wanted to leave that to your, provide that information to you. It was announced this morning. Chad found out, I think he said at 8:15, and I found out at 8:45, so that's how the sounds, the news went around. I see nothing else to come before our meeting, so meeting's adjourned.